Good evening, all. Live from Studio 4F of the SIC TV studios, located somewhere in beautiful downtown, you'll never hear it from us. It's the Mandrake radio show, starring Lionel Mandrake and his co-host, the eternally optimistic Matt Murdock, who will be joining us shortly. I am Niles French, along with Ray Mancini and the SIC TV Orchestra, inviting you to join the lads and their guests, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Katherine Heigl, and Hulk Hogan, with special guest appearance by... And now, as you can see, as opposed to normal, our guests today aren't dead yet, but their careers pretty much are, which is how we got them real cheap. And soon this man's career will be joining them. He's Mandrake. You can come in now. Mandrake, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. President, glad to have your presence here today. Good day, sir.
Thank you, Mr. French,
Tally
for
ho.
that wonderful intro. Mr. President-elect, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. President-elect. It is an honor, and thank you, Mr. Niles French, for that wonderful introduction. Welcome, everybody, to the Lionel Mandrake radio program. I'm your host, Lionel Mandrake, and we also are waiting for my co-host, Matt Murdock. Matt, Mr. Murdock.
Hey, Niles, good job, buddy.
I tell you, Niles French deserves a raise.
Mr. President, hey, quite an honor.
Yes, we're sitting here today. We have a special show. There's a lot to discuss, and we decided that perhaps, we could take a time to speak with the president-elect about some important issues. First of all, on the agenda, what do you think is the most important thing that we should query the president-elect on?
Well, seeing as how this is a topic that's very near and dear to our future president, I think we should get some thoughts on how he feels about his girlfriend and the love of your life, Megyn Kelly, leaving Fox News to go to NBC.
How about that, Miss Kelly? I like to call her the leprechaun with ET eyes because she's got like these binocular eyes. They're really far apart.
He has a secret crush. Don't let him fool you with that.
I had a crush on Megyn Kelly when she first began, when I first noticed her career. To me, it was about a year or 18 months ago.
When you first noticed her legs on Fox News.
Mr. Murdock, you know me too well. Apparently,
when you first noticed all the women's legs on Fox
Mr.
News.
Murdock, why is it that, and I'm sure Mr. Trump, President-elect Donald Trump would have something to say about this, being in the media himself before his now becoming elected president of the great United States of America. How is it that all of the Fox babes are they under contract that they have to wear very hiked up skirts with waxed legs and sit under a glass table, as Megyn Kelly has done up until recent? I think tonight is her last and final show on the Fox News network.
I don't know if it's a contract. I have wondered about that myself because it seems like no woman on Fox News wears pants, except maybe, what's her name, Greta Van Susteren. I think she's the only one that ever wore pants on there, but everybody else, it's legs.
And Hillary Clinton, if she ever had the the courage to show up at the Fox studios, which I don't believe she did during those 18 months of campaigning.
Hillary Clinton hasn't worn a dress in 20 years.
You know, that's very interesting.
As soon as she found out that there wasn't any kind of clause in the First Lady contract requiring her to wear a dress, the skirts were gone.
You know something, Mr. Murdoch? Considering the fact that we had a look at what a pantsuit actually looks like on a relatively unattractive woman, we can only assume that it would look even slightly better, but still not so nice even on an attractive woman. However, I do think that Megyn Kelly and others, perhaps not Greta Van Susteren,
I miss Lori
others in the Fox lineup.
Lori Dew was the bomb. I miss Lori Dew. she had.
Why? I
thought
you didn't like her.
I never said I didn't like Lori Dew. Hell, are you kidding? She was the first set of legs I ever noticed on Fox News. I was like, oh, what we got here?
And what is she doing these days? Because I haven't been watching her program that much.
Well, ever since she left, she's making her living as a motivational speaker now.
Now, what about Greta Van Susteren?
No, I haven't actually watched it for a while, so I don't really know what she's up to.
Mark Levin on his radio show yesterday said that he actually had her pegged and smoked her out a long time ago, that she really was more of a liberal-minded person. She's a Scientologist, according to what I've read in the news feed.
This is news.
I would have never pegged Greta Van Susteren as being a Scientologist, to be honest with you. However, she did jump ship now, and she took a job working at MSDNC.
You talking about Megyn Kelly now?
No, I'm talking about Greta Van Susteren. She went
Okay.
to MSNBC, also known as MSLSD and MSDNC.
So why are all these Fox people leaving, right-wing conservative Fox and going to the liberal competition?
You'd have to ask Megyn Kelly, because in her speech the other day when she announced her departure to NBC, which to me is sort of like from the movie, it's sort of like a monster place over there, where people at NBC run an empire that's really devoted to the cause of leftist politics, modern liberalism. NBC is no longer the proud peacock it once was. It's just a strutting kind of peacock that really doesn't have a lot of political capital anymore.
Well, really, you could say that, it's kind of a blanket indictment against all the media nowadays. I mean, all the, media that has so much prestige now, they're just shills. So.
Yeah. Do you know the New York Times recently hired a person who was operating he was working off of a blog, and his emails were revealed in that Podesta email dump that was sort of acquired by the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange. And in it, he actually was revealed to be a person who was communicating questions and information to the Democratic Party, and indeed to the Democratic candidate herself. And he said that I have become a hack. And he gets a job at the New York Times as reward for acknowledging himself as a hack and admitting
not working for the hack.
Mr. Murdoch, what does the word hack actually mean? I mean, we understand that if you're a hack, it means that you're sort of like what we would call a flunky or a sort of person who is kind of a servant. But what does the word hack mean in your mind? Because we know there are many hacks out there, like Greta Van Susteren, who's joining MSNBC, and I would have to say Miss Megyn Kelly, who's going to NBC, where she's going to do like 3 or 4 different shows.
Megyn Kelly, again, your secret crush.
I actually liked her in the beginning before I noticed that she was so full of herself.
I just got one thing to say. Megyn, just grow your hair back, please. It's a short hair thing. No, but anyway.
No, she wants to be a modern Barbara Walters. You see, you have to have this short sort of, correspondent, news anchor kind of look on the feminine side.
Barbara Walters, you mean Bob Wawa? Remember when Gilda Radner, bless her soul, used to do that character on Saturday Night Live?
Gilda Radner. You know something? Frank Morano was on the show a couple of weeks ago when you were on your hiatus, and he actually knows Joe Piscopo. And Joe Piscopo was a big star on, Saturday
Night Live.
Wasn't Gilda Radner probably on some of his in some of the skits with him? Wasn't she from Saturday Night Live?
I think by the time Piscopo came along, I think Gilda was gone. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I don't believe they were there at the same time. No.
Well, let's not go too far off the reservation here. I'd like to discuss some issues involving politics. Obviously, our distinguished guest, President-elect Donald Trump, is sitting here. Mr. President-elect, thank you so much.
He hasn't had a lot to say, I noticed.
Well, the reason is because before the show, he asked us to not ask him too many questions because he's busy trying to figure out the problems that we have and how to find solutions. For example, the Affordable Care Act. A big thing is being made right now by the Democrats that the Affordable Care Act is flawed. It is not perfect, but it's better than what we had.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer is, his apparently now new leadership role in the Democratic Party is vowing that they're going to do everything they can to stand in the way of anything that President-elect Trump has planned for Obamacare or whatever it's
Obviously,
going to
they never read The Art of the Deal, which Mr. President-elect Donald Trump wrote, in which case it would be unadvisable to negotiate from a position of weakness, which is what exactly the Democratic Party fails to realize. They are in the minority in the House, the Senate, the executive. We've got the Senate, we've got the Congress, we've got the executive branch, the presidency. There are like 900 different civil judges that are being appointed or that have been are in place to be sort of appointed by the new Republican majority. And the Democratic Party, unfortunately, didn't get the memo because not only did they reverse course, they're doubling down, and they're also considering nominating Keith Ellison as being a leader of the Democratic National Committee.
Well, all I gotta say, if they want to head down the road to fiefdom, and I mean that as in Barney fiefdom, let them go right ahead. Well, because they're shooting themselves in the foot is what they're doing.
Well, even Barney didn't have enough sense to keep a bullet in the gun of the chamber, which he should have.
No,
he always keep it in his pocket.
No, actually, Andy ordered him to do it. Andy said, no, you keep that bullet in your pocket, boy.
The song that was playing is Hail to the Chief at our opening, and the Hail to the Chief was written in 1812. And most people don't realize that it actually had words. I was very surprised when one of the people in the studio here, Joel, said, "Look, listen to this." And I was listening to "Hail to the Chief," and it's very inspirational.
I've heard that song all my life. Never knew until today it had words.
I mean,
but
listen
then
to
there's a lot of songs in history. Most people, most people don't know that the Star Spangled Banner has more than one verse. Star Spangled Banner actually has like about 4 or 5 verses, but the only one everybody knows about is the first one.
My very favorite rendition of the Star Spangled Banner was by Whitney Houston in the 1991 Super Bowl.
Oh, she did an amazing job.
I got to tell you, Whitney was really starting to go into a decline at that point because she became more involved in drugs and other activities. However, she really nailed that national anthem that year, and it made you proud to be an American because as a black American pop star who was not even liked very much by other people in the, let's say, the hip-hop world and other black musicians because she was viewed as a person who sold out to the kind of music that was not considered to be what she should be singing. And yet she made me very proud in '91. I remember it was probably the best rendition of the
She made
national
everybody
anthem.
proud. As a matter of fact, in my hometown of Florence, South Carolina, the country station that I was briefly associated with, Eagle 92.9, they had this little tradition. Eagle, like the American eagle.
Oh, Eagle, got it.
Okay, they have a little thing going where every morning at 7 o'clock they play a different version of the Star Spangled Banner. And it's usually about a country artist being a country station, but at least once or maybe twice a week they will play Whitney's version on a country station, and it's actually the most requested. People call and say, if you play the Star Spangled Banner this morning, play Whitney Houston's version. So even the rednecks love the Whitney, okay?
Sure. And speaking of race
Hey,
relations,
the woman had a voice.
She certainly had a voice, but even race relations back in 1991, as I recall, was somewhat tainted during that time by the O.J. Simpson murder trial, and then there was, of course, Rodney King, where there was that issue with Rodney King, who recently died.
And the LAPD. Yeah.
LAPD.
It's been like, I guess it's been about 2 or 3 years now that he's no longer with us. Drowned in the swimming pool.
He sure did. You know something?
While
I can remember
intoxicated.
1991, and I recall that was my first realization of how our society is more or less fragile, and that a certain event could trigger social unrest of the scale that we saw in Rodney King's in the Rodney King case. And now here in the year 2016, just 2 days ago, it was shown on the news feeds that there was an issue in Chicago where 4 young teens kidnapped or at least took advantage of a mentally disabled young man who they kept sort of against his will in an apartment and proceeded to beat him, abuse him, and so on. Did you hear about this?
And not only that, they hurled racial slurs at him, F white people and F.
What is it with
Now, here's my thing about that. And I know we're not going to talk at length about that, but here's my thing about that. Why is it, and this is what's angering me about that situation, there are people who are actually saying that was a good thing that this happened, that this makes up for, for all that was done to us. I'm like, no, come on. Have you ever heard the thing about 2 wrongs not making a right? I mean, let's put this in reverse, y'all. Okay, let's say that it's a group of white teenagers who had snatched up a black kid and who had special needs and all that, and they called him N-words and F Al Sharpton or whatever and beat him mercilessly.
Or F Obama.
Or F Obama, yeah, something like that. Well, then, hey, we would be having Black Lives Matter out in the streets raising all kinds of hell and people being called racist and all that stuff. And it's a hate crime. Okay, well, why are we not seeing that kind of response? And to be clear, I think the majority of black Americans find this situation just as reprehensible as anybody. But then you got these African Americans, and there is a distinction, who think this is okay. And I'm sorry, it's not okay, whoever does it. And one more thing before I get off of it. Okay, if you people want to start a race war and you want to pick on people like that? Hey, let's talking about this guy's going to bring back the KKK. No, he's not going to bring back the KKK. What you guys are doing was shenanigans like beating this kid up and hurling racial epithets. That's what's going to bring back the KKK. But I just want to say this, okay? Why is it that if you're gonna pick on somebody, instead of picking on a special needs kid who probably has no idea what's happening to him or why don't you get somebody like Dylan Roof and beat him up? I mean, if you're gonna do it, let's do it to the right people. Just pick on, just get some random white person and say, okay, we're gonna, nah. Go get some neo-Nazi skinhead or something and do that, and then nobody's going to really have a problem.
Mr. Murdoch, this places me in a difficult position because to analyze
You're always
this,
in a difficult position.
What I mean by in a difficult position is because you want to talk about these issues and you want to talk about them honestly, but because of political correctness, you have to feel that even discussing the issue of race makes you somehow a racist, whether or not your points are valid or not. It's an uncomfortable discussion, race and race relations. I don't want to really focus the entire show on it, but what I wanted to mention about this instance here is that you've got good and bad in all different people, and these four individuals don't represent the average hardworking person out there who is a citizen of Chicago. In fact, they're an aberration to the good people of Chicago who are tired of what Rahm Emanuel and the Democratic Party have failed to do. They failed to bring law and order to that city. President-elect Donald Trump wants to do that, and he even sent a tweet saying if he needs help, and if it's federal help, he should ask. The situation is this. You can look at this as a matter of criminality. Whether or not it is a hate crime, to me, is moot because I believe hate crimes are thought crimes. And so a thought crime to me means that you're controlling people's thought. Basically, the facts in this case are clear. 4 people abducted a special needs or a mentally disabled person, beat him. I don't know. Look, torture is one way they described it. They put his face in the toilet, they urinated on him, they scalped, they cut pieces of his hair off. The second way you could look at it is...
And that's reprehensible no matter who does it.
Obviously, you don't treat... most normal people would have the morality to instinctively know that this is not how you treat another human being, especially someone who was entrusted to your care, because apparently this young man, and he is 18 years old, he's not a kid, he is a young man, he has special needs, I don't know what his mental age is. They are 18 years of age, 3 of them, and one of them is 24 years old. So 2 sisters and 2 young men.
Yeah, it's my understanding that he was actually acquainted with the people that did this to him. These weren't like random strangers or anything like that. They actually knew each other.
What I wanted to complete the thought is it could be looked at as from a law enforcement perspective, or it could be looked at as a failure of society to properly create and foster healthy citizenry. These people are monsters that you wouldn't imagine would come from a first world nation like the United States of America. Yeah. And when Donald Trump is saying, President-elect Trump is saying, we want to make America great again, we want to look at these events as an aberration and not the norm, but events such as this are more and more happening every day, not just racial hatred between blacks and whites and blacks with Dylan Roof and these 4 individuals. But there's a whole bunch of other examples of wild, almost unheard of types of criminal activity that is happening on a daily basis, shooting up malls, shooting up churches, having people kill their children and so forth. There's a failure of morality, I think, that's at the root of this, and a failure of I think the proper role of even religion.
Yeah, I mean, well, see, you're right. It breaks down across all kinds of barriers. It goes beyond race. It's just this general sense of whatever it is that's poisoned the culture in this country to the point where all kinds of lawless, heinous acts are being committed on a bunch of levels.
But do you see my point? I mean, you could look at it look at it from a criminal perspective or from a philosophical, moral, and social perspective. On the latter, we have, one moment, please. On the latter, we have a situation where the morality of the country seems to be breaking down. And on the other hand, we have a situation where criminality seems to be sort of the right difference between what is right and what is wrong is not acknowledged. And so it's very unusual for people to look at this and just view it, I would say, just as purely a bunch of black kids who were trying to hate on a white person, which is what it was. But It's more than that, even, I fear.
But would they be doing that? Would they be engaging in that
Are you
kind of
there?
behavior if they were raised
Call
better
the studio.
morally? So, I mean, that to me is,
Okay, I'm hanging up.
like I said, it just goes down. He's talking to one of his secret operatives. You still working for the Hughes Corporation?
You know something, Mr. Murdoch? We do have the phone line. It doesn't seem to be working because one of our callers acquired our number, and I'm wondering if the phone lines are working in there. Because we do have Mr. Jackson. Apparently, he's listening to the show, and he wants to weigh in on the issue of race. You know, that's his big topic.
Mr. Jackson, don't you mean Mick Jaku Hassan or what?
Oh, Jackson. Yeah, I call him Jackson for short, but Mr. Jackson.
Or his, what I understand is going to be his new identity today, Snoop Diddy Jakusan.
May I ask you a question? What did you make of President Obama's statement yesterday that we have a better race relations under his presidency than ever before? Did you hear him make that statement? And if you didn't, that's what he said.
Well, he also says that we don't have a problem with Middle Eastern jihadist terrorism either.
That's a good point. And in both cases, the man is delusional. On the phone, we have Mick Jakusan, I believe. Mr. Jakusan, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
Mr. Jakusan, speak closer into the phone and enunciate your words properly if you can. I know Ebonics is probably your first language.
Oh, please.
But try to enunciate in good, proper Queen's English if you can.
No, we don't generalize here, no.
Thank you for clearing that up, Mr. Murdoch, because I don't want to get kicked off the air.
We're watching the
verbally
clock.
Abusing the host of this show.
Well,
did you hear that clearer? Did you hear that pretty clear?
Now listen, we know that
he's used to that.
Mr. Jakusan, we know you're calling in from Texas, and we understand that you have something to say about the situation which occurred, the awful, really nasty situation that happened in Chicago 2 days ago regarding a mentally disabled young white man who was held captive by four young black men and women who proceeded to abuse him. I'm wondering if you have any points that you'd like to make about this.
Well, it's a sad day in America. I will say that.
Right.
That these four children who basically committed this heinous act, they're going to have to see racism from a first-hand standpoint. What they deserve is exactly what they're going to get.
Right. What do you think? What do you mean by that? What they're going to get? Do you think they're going to be given a slap on the wrist?
No, they're not going to get slapped on the wrist.
Why do you say that?
Not at all. Because they could have even just tripped the fellow and they wouldn't get slapped on the wrist.
Right.
Because of the nature of the situation, this was a mentally challenged individual. So of course they're going to go at him probably to the letter of the law. They're going to go at him hard. Mm-hmm. My thing, of course, is where they'll probably get treated extremely, not saying they don't deserve it. It's just, when as an American born in New York, when you compare incidents, be it the Dylan Roof character who openly admits his hatred and has no remorse for his heinous crime, who was fed a whopper before he went into custody. These are things that show, okay, yeah, you committed a heinous crime, and no matter what, before we kill you, we're gonna treat you humanely. Them four individuals is not gonna get that same treatment. But something just as equally is just, oh my goodness, and it's sad that it has to come to this. This is what we're seeing in America nowadays, to where we could objectify one and not the other. We'll try him, to the letter of the law, and same time we'll fluff his pillow.
So you see an issue of the usual subject regarding incarceration rates and sort of the underclass being given more harsh treatment under the American judicial system.
Yeah, we could just call that white privilege. We don't have to.
Okay, so it goes back to racism once again, but let's look at it from a moral perspective, social perspective. Is there a failure of society that such young men and women in this case could have been produced by a first world nation, when one would assume that being in a first world world nation. They had every opportunity to both educate themselves, better themselves, and learn proper morality, courtesy, and human decency. Where did they go wrong? Was it society, or was it their parents, or was it just that they chose to do wrong because that was the path that was most comfortable for them?
Well, what I'm gonna say is going to be everyone's going to say, "Oh, that's just an excuse," when it's actually reality.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not familiar with Dylan Roof's background or how he was raised, but the chances are that he probably came up in a middle class family, had both parents. You know what I'm saying? Things of that nature. Whereas these 4 children, I bet you neither one of them.
But they're not children. 2 are 18, 3 are 18, and 1 is 24 years of age with a daughter. So they're not children.
Only thing they can do legally is smoke and maybe vote. They're children.
Well, they were smoking marijuana while they were torturing the young disabled women.
You smoke marijuana when you're 10.
Okay, let me interject on something. Okay, now, Mr. Jackson, what you brought up, Mr. Jackson, excuse me, what you brought up is a good point. From what I understand now, what I'm not saying that I'm an expert on it or anything, but from what I understand, Dylan Roof actually did have a proper upbringing, and supposedly, from what I've heard, his parents did not raise him to be racist, and they are just as shocked and outraged at what he did as anyone, and they can't understand where they might have gone wrong leading to him going down this path. So I just want to throw that in there.
But Mr. Murdoch, I want to ask you...
And just saying no, but in saying that, what that says is that's a breakdown in society. That's not a breakdown in the family home. Now, the 4 individuals in Chicago, they didn't have that. So not only did they have a breakdown in family structure, but they still got to face the ills of society, which is going to lead them, especially if ignorant, to do such dumb stuff like that.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. Let's not minimize it by using soft language. It was not dumb. Can you imagine if you were the victim of such an assault? It would be terrifying and heinous.
Like I said,
it's not
heinous,
dumb.
Okay,
this is serious stuff.
Ignorant, dumb, whatever the word.
Well, let's call it what it was. It's a form of racism. It was racism, and racism cuts both ways. Blacks aren't the only ones who have racist tendencies. Whites do too, some, not all. And it's a difficult subject to discuss.
I disagree with that.
Now,
Why would you disagree?
Okay, let me chime in on just one thing, and this is an observation that was pointed out to me a long time ago. What people don't want to realize about the racial situation in America is that now the playing field is level. It's no longer the situation where you had one race that was the cruel, heartless oppressor and the other race that was the hapless, forever victim. Now, no, it's equal on both sides now.
Saying that, though, when you say that, the hapless victim is tired of being a hapless victim. So now,
understandably,
when a lot of people are saying, oh, they're racist, no, they're not. They're tired of being hapless victims.
But
so that's not racism in my eye. That's a reaction towards racism. You know what I'm saying? That's the reaction that racism bring about.
Well,
we couldn't possibly be racist. We was brought here under oppressed conditions, point blank.
And what year did you arrive?
Excuse me?
What year did you arrive?
Exactly. That's the argument. Well, it wasn't our fault. That happened 400 years ago, of course. But with white people, this is like an institution. Y'all been doing it from day one.
Wait a minute.
So it doesn't matter
I haven't been doing anything.
It's been going on for over 400 years. And now all of a sudden, like Mr. Murdoch said, the playing field is level only because the hapless victim got up and said, I'm tired.
So, Mr. Murdoch, are you siding in with Mr. Jack Hussein's radical
leftist
views?
No, see, you're looking at it wrong.
Relations?
It's not a side. It's a point of fact. That's it.
It is a point of fact. Now,
I disagree.
Now, where I differ is that I don't believe that one is going. It's like now. It's like we're saying, okay, this is tit for tat. Okay. Y'all been hateful to us for the last 400 years. So now to make up for it, to get even, hold it. Let me finish. We're now going to spend the next 400 years being racist too, and that's not going to solve anything.
No, but it feels good. All I got to say to you, Mr.
And people on both sides are going to go with that one.
Mr. Jacobson, let me just make one point here. I don't believe that there is a war between the races. I believe that you talk about 400 years as if it was a continuum, a fabric of cloth that extends from 17 whenever to 2017. 16 whatever to now. It is not. Look, what about that little thing called the Civil War, which was fought to provide equality and to abolish slavery? Wait a minute, may I please?
Okay.
I know you're going to look at it from an economic point of view, that it was just a useful thing to do at the time.
That's the only way to look at it, man. They were like, man, we can make more money off these blacks than we,
No, wait a minute.
Opposed, all we got to do is feed them meager wages and have them living in unspeakable conditions.
Well,
and just don't call them slaves
give them
anymore.
A Cadillac or a box of Newports.
No, they didn't get Cadillacs. They got Buick Electras. That was the black man's Cadillac.
A deuce and a quarter, yeah. All right, now,
Exactly.
now,